Got a letter here from Birmingham, Alabama. Michael, it's a neat letter, and he encloses a newspaper clip from the Birmingham News. The Birmingham News, and this is November. I don't have the day, but November this year. And it's interesting what's going on down there. The Alabama public schools are going to put an insert into the state biology textbooks, their science textbooks, and the insert has to do with evolution. And so they're having a debate over whose statement on evolution is going to go into the textbooks. They've got one suggestion from the Alabama State Board of Education. Actually, they have suggestions from individuals on the State Board of Education. And then they have a suggestion, an insert from Eagle Forum. And then they have one from the Alabama Academy of Sciences. And here, I'll just give you a couple little snippets of these things. This here from basically the State Board of Education, very double-minded about what they want to say about evolution. Here's what they want to put an insert into the school science books. Evolution describes changes that occur within a species. White moths, for example, can evolve into gray moths. This process is microevolution, which can be observed and described as fact. The change of one living thing to another, such as reptiles into birds, is called macroevolution, which has never been observed and should be considered a theory. And then they go on to ask some questions like, why did the major groups of animals suddenly appear in the fossil record? That's a good question, right? Known as the Cambrian explosion. Why have no new major groups of living things appeared in the fossil record for a long, long time? Why do major groups of plants and animals have no transitional forms in the fossil record? These are pretty hard-hitting, good questions. And how did you and all living things come to possess such a complete and complex set of instructions for building a living body? Now, those last four questions there really are hard questions for evolution. Evolution does not have answers. They do not have scientific proof, answers for those questions. But let's back up, because they put a little for evolution and then a little against evolution. The little for evolution was their first statement, which was wrong. This statement is wrong. Listen to this. Evolution describes changes that occur within a species. White moths, for example, can evolve into gray moths. White moths can evolve into gray moths. What are they talking about? I know what they're talking about, that story that came out of England ages ago. These peppered moths they're in England and especially around London, and there were these light-colored moths. And over time, evolutionists early on tell us that they evolved into dark-colored moths. Well, that whole story, now we know the truth of it, and it's silly. We'll explain it and show you photos in 1 second. On to these moths now. I'm going to show you these moths. I have here, and then we'll get to some calls, Funk and Wagnall's New Encyclopedia. I don't know how new it is. These are one of those ones, you know, you go to the grocery store, and you go in there, and all of a sudden it says, 99 cents, get volume 1. A through, deal. And you think, 99 cents for an encyclopedia, and everybody buys it. And then every week they have the next one for like $4.97 or something. And after 6-7 weeks, everybody's addicted, and then they have them all in there, and people buy them. So millions of these are all over the country, and I have one. I think I have 2 sets, actually. Funk and Wagnall's right here. And about as reliable as any encyclopedia. But there's an article in here about evolution, of course, and I want to show you these moths. Now, this moth is called the Byston betullaria. That's the peppered moth. And this first photograph here, this is before there was pollution in London. There's 2 moths in that photograph. Can you see the second one? The light-colored Byston betullaria, however you say these things, and the dark-colored one. Now, the light-colored one is pointing head down toward the right the right quadrant, the right bottom quadrant of your screen. Or, yeah, it's right on my screen. And the dark one you can see easily. Now, what happened in London with the Industrial Revolution, there was a lot of soot that was put in the air. Now, much of that is cleaned up now because the Industrial Revolution has evolved. And we've learned you make something, you make a mess, you learn how to clean it up. Man's pretty good at that. So anyway, now that pollution is, most of it has disappeared, but initially the trees got dark. So when birds would come along, let's say there's a bird and he's hungry, and he wants to eat a moth, and he flies by these two moths. Which one is he going to go for? Well, he's going to go for the one he could see, the dark one. And so the light moths, when the trees, let's go to the next photograph. The trees got darker and the light moths started getting picked off like crazy. And the dark moths were able to survive better. So what we find out, and I'll read you here, I'll read you right from the Funk and Wagnalls, right? Early on, what evolutionists said was, look, before our very eyes, we have an example of evolution. These light-colored moths have evolved into dark-colored moths. And that's not the truth at all. The truth is, the light and dark-colored moths are the identical species. There's nothing different other than there are some light and some dark, just like human beings. Homo sapiens, we're the identical species. Some people are light with blonde hair, and others are darker with brown eyes, and right, blonde and blue eyes, and brown hair and brown eyes. And identical species. Now, and here we go. I'll quote you here, page 284 of this particular. The light and dark moth varieties belong to the same species and interbreed freely. What else we have here? Dark and light forms of the peppered moth left light moth is barely visible on lichen-covered tree trunk in the unpolluted English countryside. The dark moth is more vulnerable to predatory birds. Right against the sooty tree trunk near industrial Birmingham, the light moth is more vulnerable. So the only thing that happened is the proportion of light to dark-colored moths changed. That's not evolution. I mean, that is not evolution. It's not. There were no genetic changes. It was identical before and after. Yet you still read it. So here they say, the Alabama State Board of Education says, what do they say? Evolution describes changes that occur within a species. White moths, for example, can't evolve into gray moths. No, they can't. I mean, it hasn't happened. We have no evidence of it. They say it can happen. There's another quote here by someone else on the State Board of Education, I think. Yeah, here he is. Here we go. He says, for example, a population of white moths can evolve into a population of gray moths. This is a process that can be observed and can be described as fact. Now, he slipped in that word population there. So maybe he was real sneaky and knew what he was doing. Because the percentage changed, but it hasn't evolved at all. But here's I don't know, this one is from Eagle Forum. And this one, Eagle Forum, their suggested insert into this Alabama State science books says, for example, a population of white moths can evolve into a population of gray moths. This process is called microevolution. It is a process that can be observed and can be described as fact. Now, I think just presenting that in the context of evolution is incredibly misrepresentative. I had a guy call in here a week ago, and he said he believed in evolution, and I'm ignorant because I don't know the facts. And I said, give me give me the best evidence you have that evolution has occurred. Reptiles evolved into birds, and bats into rats into bats, and whatever you want. Dolphins into tree, whatever. And he said the moths, the light-colored moths evolved to dark color. I was like, that's not evolution. So anyway, it's still there. But look at these callers. What? And nothing on this. We'll get to these and more stories in just one moment. So Eagle Forum, they end up their proposed insert into the Alabama science textbook, this insert about evolution, with this statement. This really shocks me. I mean, they all have something similar, all these different proposals. It says, we hope that you will study hard, keep your mind open. That always bugs me. It's like somewhere, as the Lord hath said, be thou open-minded. What's all this open-minded business? I mean, if somebody says that Adolf Hitler was really a good guy, should we be open-minded? Should we think that through? Thanks. So they're totally narrow-minded. They think all this immorality is good. Anyway, keep your mind open. I challenge any Christian, non-Christians too, search through the Bible, find one place where God says, be thou open-minded. Open-minded is like incredibly ignorant. Incredibly ignorant. And just as a general rule, somebody thinks, well, we should be open-minded. What does that mean? Can't your brain have a base to it? And then when things come into your mind, they stick? Or you got to be open-minded and everything comes in and drips out the bottom. You got like an eternal spinal tap. It all just falls out. Anyway, they say, keep your mind open, and someday, this is from Eagle Forum, someday even you may even contribute to the theories of how we appeared on this planet. What theories? That's sort of strange. Eagle Forum usually, says really has great material usually when they warn kids about all this liberal and immoral garbage. But anyway, and last but not least, the last proposal to get into the Alabama textbooks comes from the Alabama Academy of Sciences. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you that these guys undoubtedly will have the most ignorant insert of them all. The silliest, the stupidest, the least scientific, the most embarrassing. So what do they, theirs is the shortest, by the way. Here's what they write. In this textbook, you may encounter evolutionary biology. You may encounter, haven't they read the book? Haven't they read it? Isn't that what this is all about? In this textbook, you may encounter evolutionary biology. Your textbook may present scientific explanations of two different issues. May present, haven't they read it? Don't they know how to read? It's Alabama Academy of Sciences. Your textbook may encounter, you may encounter evolution. It may present scientific explanations on the origin of life and on life's subsequent evolution. And then they say something that's so sly and so subtly twisted, you'd think that Bill Clinton himself would probably have written it. They say, while it is difficult at present to provide conclusive arguments about how life originated on Earth, scientists are more knowledgeable about the mechanisms of life's subsequent evolution. That was a real subtle, twisted statement to suggest that we have conclusive proof for evolution, which is a lie. And they go in, we hope that you will study hard, keep your mind open, except on the issue of evolution. Because on the issue of evolution, scientists are as dogmatic as any religious fanatic. There is no open-mindedness whatsoever as regards evolution itself. The scientists say, we're always open-minded. Everything is up for change, except that we evolved. They'd rather kill than give that up. And they're totally closed-minded to any evidence that throws into question evolution. And there's a ton of it. All right.